Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Good afternoon, Italy. Good morning, Brazil. I have to say it every time because it's like a meme in Brazil. Welcome to TalkWax, the annual international conference led by Ladies That UX, by Women for Women. Ladies That UX is a global organization that has created an inspiring and inspirational global community for women who work with design and technology, leading a global movement around the world in more than 75 cities. All TalkWax presentations are being recorded in our YouTube channel, so you can watch and rewatch our videos and share with everyone. My name is Maria Nozaki. I'm EMA Region Director at Ladies That UX and one of the chapter leaders of Ladies That UX Milan. For accessibility purposes, I'm going to describe myself. I'm an Asian woman with short black hair. I'm wearing a yellow and black plaid dress. I'm using earphones, and I am in Milan in my living room, but I'm using a filter to cover it. That actually this is not my home. Everyone thinks it's my home, but actually it's not. So about the panel today, this panel is very special for me because we're going to talk about diversity, inclusion, and in my opinion, there is no design without diversity or any product or services without so. Like I cannot even imagine how boring the world would be if people were all the same. So bringing diversity and talking about plurality and inclusion shouldn't be just a buzzword for companies to use that, but should be the obvious thing, the obvious choice for people to do. So diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. This is a quote made by Virna Myers, where she talks about inclusion strategy. Also, in our conversation, like rehearsal call, before arriving here with all the amazing women that we're going to have this conversation with, Tara said something that for me it really touched my heart. That she said, when you can see it, you can be it. Like talking about representativity roles, like seeing other women like you occupying spaces that were not occupied before. When you can see someone that looks like you know that maybe one day you can arrive to that place as well. So we are here to celebrate our diversity and also highlight our differences because differences are good. They're not bad, they are good. And we can learn from each other and apply in what we do. Like I've been learning a lot since I've met these amazing women that are going to talk right now. And I hope you guys learn as well. And then this conversation can change us somehow after everything, because due to the pandemic and everything, I know that this year hasn't been the best year. It's not been easy, but I really like to take advantage of this opportunity to talk about things because we can be here and we can celebrate our diversity. So I will start introducing these amazing women: Tara, Kimberly, Viv, Paulina, and Rhea. Welcome, everyone.
Hi.
Hey, thanks.
Hi, Maria.
Good to be here.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
So first of all, please introduce yourselves and what would you like for people to know about you?
Great. Thanks, Mariana. I really enjoyed your introduction. That was a really nice start to this event. My name is Tara Nielsen. I'm a lead designer working at Booking.com. My day-to-day job is to improve the customer experience in our native iOS and Android apps. I'm sitting here in my home in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. For accessibility purposes, I have dark wavy hair. I'm wearing glasses today and a black t-shirt. I'm also a white woman. Thanks.
Kimberly?
Yes, I had to unmute myself. Couldn't find it. Hi, I'm Kimberly Snoyl. I'm calling from the Netherlands, and I'm 32 years old. I'm a UX designer. I'm actually in my first UX design role right now at the Dutch police. And before this, I have been doing software testing for 6 years. And I'm also the founder of Ladies at UX Utrecht because I missed UX in my work. So when I was a tester, I started Ladies at UX Utrecht. For accessibility purposes, I'm from Surinamese origin, so I'm dark-skinned. I have afroish-like hair, which is now pulled back with my headphones, and I'm wearing a yellow dress. Oh, that's it, I think, for now.
Rhea?
Hello, I am Rhea Althea Guntalilib. I am totally blind. I am from the Philippines and I am working as an accessibility support for Bookshare. It's an accessible online library from a company called Benetech. And I'm also working as an accessibility specialist. So I mostly work hand in hand with UX as, in the part of inclusive design. So for accessibility purposes, I am very Asian. I have short, no, shoulder level hair with black eyes, and I'm now working. I'm inside my room in my work table, and I'm wearing a blue blouse with vertical stripes. So thank you, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Paulina?
Hey everyone. So my name is Paulina Merasa. I am originally from Mexico and I'm living in the Netherlands almost for 6 years now and working as a UX designer at a company called UNL. For describing myself, no, now people cannot see it, but I'm quite short. I have a tan skin color. I have brown hair. I'm wearing a green sweater, and my background is a blackboard I have and a pumpkin I draw for the autumn. So, yeah, really nice to be here as well.
Thank you. Viv?
Hello, thank you so much, Mariana. Hi, I'm Vivien Chang. For accessibility purposes, I'm an Asian woman with brown eyes, black hair. I wear glasses and have my hair in a ponytail. I'm at home right now and it's 10 p.m. in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. I also have earphones in as well. So I started in quality assurance before finding a love of UX, and from there I am now a product manager at Joseph Mark. So I help businesses, help to create businesses at different stages of where they are at, from validating ideas through to developing MVPs and growth and scale.
Thanks everyone for the introduction. So I would like to go for the first question. What diversity means to you?
Shall I start? Yeah,
Yes.
you can hear me, right? Well, what diversity means for me? Well, coming from my background, of course, in Suriname, where I lived there, it was a very diverse community. There are people from different races. You have black and white and Chinese, and people from Indonesia, so and from India. So I think that's maybe the highest point of diversity that you can reach. That these people are living in a small country together from so many different backgrounds. But still, there were silos because those people only marry each other. You know, the Indian people only marry each other, Chinese people only marry each other, and some of them they mix. but diversity is different backgrounds, of course, and also different views. So also women, female, men, female, and all kinds of different perspectives.
Shall I jump in next? So diversity to me means keeping an open mind to different perspectives, because there's like an understanding that you're exposed to a set of perspectives initially, and that can grow on you, but obviously the world is much larger and richer than that. So for me, growing up, so my parents, they're from Taiwan and they immigrated to Australia, and I was born here. So in terms of that, I never quite felt like I belonged until I was a lot older. Not obviously there's the part where I don't quite look similar to my peers at the time, but also realizing that culturally on a certain level, while I can speak the language, there are just certain cultural cues and norms that I didn't quite understand in terms of nuances. And I realized that when I was working at a digital marketing agency, where many of my ideas didn't quite sit well for different types of projects because I couldn't culturally speak to the right audiences. So for me, diversity is, having that open mind and seeking to understand, and then being able to try to meet halfway.
Okay, can I go next? For me, diversity means inclusion. So, regardless if you are a person with a different kind of ability, just like me, or different age, gender, religion, it means that in spite of all these differences, we are one, we belong, and we are united. So, like in my part, my blindness or my disability should not be the reason why I should be excluded. So, yeah, for me, diversity is all about inclusion.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. I consider diversity not only for the way we look, the appearance, but I also think that diversity should be considered for expertise, different expertise and different ideas. We could all look the same, or maybe be from the same age or race, and still have really different beliefs or religion or visions about the future or the world. So I think interests, expertise, experiences should also be considered. I grew up in Mexico, and to me it's really interesting to see how diversity, or how I have experienced diversity in my home country and here. In Mexico, the differences are not so much in international or different backgrounds, but more on the socioeconomic aspect. So that's also interesting. That's what diversity also means to me, not only appearance, but also other things that influence the way we are and the way we think.
I'm not sure I can add much more to that. I think that was like really well articulated. So I'll just kind of summarize a few of those things that I agree with. I think diversity is difference, and I think it's about celebrating that difference rather than just tolerating that difference. I think for me, diversity is a practice rather than a goal, rather than an end goal. It should be something that's practiced day to day. I think dimensions of diversity, similar to what Paulina just mentioned, it's gender, it's sexuality, it's socioeconomic level, things like education as well, and geographic boundaries, and I think in terms of like ability as well, physical ability and mental ability. I think these are the things that I think of when we talk about diversity. Thanks.
Thank you. So when we talk about diversity and when we match that with design and technology, how do you think our work can be applied to our product and services? How can we bring diversity to what we do?
I can add to that maybe. When I was thinking about these questions, I thought that there may be 3 ways that we can add this, because I think there are different moments or contexts that in which we can think about diversity. In one hand, we have our users, so to make sure that we have diversity in our target group, but also when we tackle certain problems to look for diversity in opinions within the company, different roles, different expertise, like the technical perspective, the business perspective. And the third one, maybe look into the external perspective, like other experts that can talk about the problem that we are facing, or maybe other companies that have had similar problems, and just find diversity in views of the problem, and find it in other disciplines. So I think we can include diversity in how we manage our projects and how we gather insights in different points.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I would also like to add the female perspective, because I have been in a couple of projects, and ever since my studies in artificial intelligence, I was one of the few women. Also in projects in IT, you see there's not a lot of women. I now work in a team with 10 guys, and I'm the only woman. So I think it's good also to have a female perspective as well, because we how do you say, we fill each other in our ideas.
And I think in addition to that, since we're talking about technology, it's also good to be reminded that we should also consider users with, disabilities like me. That it doesn't mean that, I have a disability, it means I can't use a computer or I can't use the internet. Although I know that some people, this concept might be foreign to them, but for designers most especially, it's very important to consider that there are users like me who are using technologies.
Yeah, I think I can add to this conversation as well. From my perspective, I think it starts at the policy level of the company. So making sure that in your recruitment processes that you have policies to actually attract diverse candidates as well. I think something as simple as making sure that the hiring managers have had bias training to work out what their biases are, so they can really start to challenge that and make sure that that they're welcoming to a diverse audience to start within the company. What happens then, I think, is that your teams are made up of people that are diverse, right? And so if you have different perspectives, different backgrounds from your team members, generally you get better perspectives and more innovation. It just kind of works out that way, right? It makes sense. You're thinking laterally, you're thinking creatively. Everybody comes from a different part, to create something that's really unique. I think in our teams, we can also apply some processes, right, to make sure that we're building products that cater for the entire world or the entire audience that use our products. Like, thinking about diversity at the research stage, really early on when you're building a product. Think about your audience. Really do some user interviews to see the day-to-day that your audience experiences, what their ability is, what their age is, how they relate to technology, how they use technology. I think these things are really important as well. As well as Viv mentioned, but before, she probably knows this a lot, like QA testing, I think is super important. And, in the QA testing stuff, you can see a lot of accessibility problems that are in the product. So making sure that becomes, a really important part of your product development cycle, I think can really help as well. That's the way I think of it. Like, it's a culmination of all these things. If you can get all of these happening in some way within your groups or within your organizations, that the outcome is that you have considered diversity and inclusion in your products.
Yeah, just to quickly add to that in terms of like the testing aspect, so understanding that there isn't an average customer, that you purposefully and consciously try to seek out underrepresented groups in your area as much as possible, so that you can get that diversity in perspective. A lot of the ideas that kind of come out from like the solutions, at least personally for me, have been coming from those rich stories that are told from customers or from user interviews and usability tests. So that's a really powerful way. And then to add to the hiring side of things, purposely trying to reach out to these people who, from a cultural perspective, may find it hard to speak up or think that they may not be worthy of a role, is also a powerful way to kind of go around that hiring and also recruitment process.
Yeah, I completely agree. Also made me think how companies could like increase diversity, not using like as a buzzword, as I said in the introduction, but how the mentality of companies can grow so we can bring more diversity. What do you think about that? Also using other kind of tools. Do you think it depends on us as individuals, or it needs to start from higher levels, higher roles? What do you think about that?
I can jump in here. I've got a few opinions. I'm not a professional, of course, but I have some opinions I can offer. I think it's got to be both. Like, I think it has to come from the top as well as from the bottom. I think it's very hard to expect the people at the bottom to really kind of champion this and to see actual change within an organization or within a culture. So I think from the outset, the leadership team or your managers really have to champion diversity. They have to give this space for people to be able to give their opinions and give their points of view. And so I think that's one way that it can be fostered. When talking to people in organizations that are, at a senior level, I think it can be really helpful to acknowledge that diversity is good for business. While I don't think that's the only reason to do it, it shouldn't be, but it is something to understand that when you're talking to business people, these things, actually kind of cut through and really, it gets to their language, which is about kind of the bottom line. So I think that's really important. It's been proven time and time again that diverse products, if you design for a minority, generally what happens is the majority also benefits as well. But yeah, from the bottom up, I think it's all about the culture of the place and how are the people in your organization relating to each other? How do they respect one another? How do they have arguments and still be mindful of differences of opinion and really create a space that's safe there? So yeah, I think it sort of, it needs both. It needs the top-down approach and the bottom-up, and to challenge the status quo and for people to feel like they can speak up on behalf of diversity and really kind of challenge what's happening in their organizations.
Yeah, I also agree with that. And yeah, last time when we were discussing about this, I also thought about the value of diversity, and I think that we should maybe be more aware of what's really the purpose of bringing in different people. because I also think that it could lead to conflicts if people have really different beliefs, and instead of bringing innovation or different outcomes, it could also bring big differences and conflicts. So I think it's also maybe good to monitor and be aware of those, of the impact of bringing different diversity, and instead of focusing on diversity just for having diversity people, maybe we should focus on what are the different goals that we want to achieve with our product. So and then from there, think how can we be more inclusive, and consider what kind of people we want to include to be sure that we're covering all perspectives. So I think that's something to consider as well.
Yeah, I was also thinking about the process of looking at the resumes when people apply for a job. That I've heard too. Of course, I've heard multiple ways of looking at it. Some people say we only take in the best of the best, so the best resume, the highest, the most intelligent people. And I don't know if I agree with that. Because then maybe you only have the same, you only have the same kind of people, the most intelligent, most the brightest of the group. And maybe it's sometimes also good to give somebody else a chance and bring some more diversity into your team with another another perspective. So I'm sure there will be different opinions about this, and it depends on the company, of course. But I just wanted to say this as well, that you can take the best of the best, or you can think, hey, we already have so many people that are good with the hard skills. Maybe we need some people with soft skills as well, with good soft skills.
Yeah, but just to add with what you said, I totally agree. It's, of course, the hiring managers or the HR persons would definitely look for the best of the best. But I think it's also very important for those people to, set aside the biases when they're just going through the resumes. Because just like me, we have a lot of stories or experience here in our country wherein like we submit our resumes, and when I'm not saying that all hiring managers are like that, but there's a tendency that when they saw that the applicant, okay, has a disability, for example, if the applicant is blind, they would no longer proceed in browsing through the rest of the profile of the applicant. All that matters is, okay, they saw that the applicant has a disability, then okay, they would move to the next applicant. So I think it's also important to, as I said, set aside the biases, and in spite of seeing like, okay, this person has a disability, then it's just fair that you give that person the equal chance, and you first go through the rest of his or her resume and focus on the skills and not on the disability. So,
Yes, totally. I think that should not even be part of the process or how things should be done for hiring. I totally agree. It should be more about your personality, how you fit in the team, how your skills will provide value to your customers, to the company. It should all be about that. And I think it's really a pity that there are companies that are still doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I really wished like all the companies could have the like a mindset like this, because sometimes I'm not saying all of the companies, but I see sometimes diversity here in Italy very very hard to see. Like for like the first thing when Kimberly was talking about the CV and resume here, they have like the standard CV in Italy should have your picture on it. So I think obviously by your last name and by your picture they have some biases when they look at the documents maybe it will be also a way of rejecting you from the job position. Like, because for example, in some companies that I applied a few years ago, one of the things that they said, it was that I was not Italian, and at that time I couldn't speak like proper, like fluent Italian as I can speak now. But again, makes me think about they want someone with the, like, the personality, the soft skills that you're looking for, and then this person doesn't speak the language, but this person can learn. Or what is better, like to take an Italian that it doesn't have experience, and then hire this person just because of their nationality or because it's easier. Like, this makes me think a lot. So I want to know about, from your perspectives, like about representation and people in leadership roles. What is the effect of it in your life?
I can jump into it. I think that's very important. And also, in my personal experience, there's one story. There's this actress, Mexican actress. She's an indigenous woman, and I don't know if you've heard of the movie Roma, but it's about this lady that is a cleaning lady, and it's about her story. And we normally don't see these kind of people represented in Hollywood. And then she actually later became very famous and went to the Oscars and appeared on a magazine. So I think that's very important because when I was living in Mexico, you really don't realize about that. It's so common to have someone that helps you at home and that have those roles that come from indigenous background. And you just see that as normal because you grew up with that. And the fact that you see someone being represented that is different also makes you rethink of all those things that you've learned from the beginning. So, and also think about why is it that we don't have more people like this in different roles. And I think you cannot change anything if you are not aware of your current situation, of the current problems. So I think just by being there in front, having different people can also break those patterns. And I think that is very powerful and yeah, can make people aware of it and be inspiring, of course. Yeah, so that's what it means to me.
Couldn't agree more with Paulina. And already Tara and Mariana, you touched on it. The when you see it, you can be it, right? So it's all about exposure. A little off topic, but when I was kind of going through being a UX designer, I never thought I would be in a startup or help to create anything from scratch because there wasn't any representation of female founders, essentially. So being able to see that and think, oh, hey, actually I could do that is super, super powerful, and especially in leadership roles. So for me, like benevolent racism and sexism is quite a thing in Queensland, Australia. And when I was going through that, I didn't quite understand what was happening. So for a long time, I thought that was very normal, that was like a problem of mine, that I didn't understand something or I wasn't smart enough. Realizing now that I'm in a place that is almost 50-50 female and male, both from a leadership position and from a team position, that's when I realized that like workplaces can be like this, and then you suddenly learn some of the processes and some of the things that can be done to make people feel more welcomed and to like seek to understand and be more open-minded. So yeah, a huge impact when you can see that coming from leadership.
Yeah, I would also like to add a story. This is about how I started Ladies at UX in Utrecht. I went to the Ladies at UX meetups in Amsterdam a couple of times, and I saw these ladies just like me organizing this meetup, and it was really such a good vibe. It was open to everyone. The topics were interesting. I felt really welcome. And I thought, hey, maybe I can do the same in Utrecht. And I wasn't even a UXer. Can you imagine that this really had an effect on me, an effect on my life? Because if I had never started the chapter in Utrecht, I would not have been sitting here today. So yeah, I'm really grateful that I saw Nadia Unalova, Jenny Shen, and Roxanne Groeneberg at the Ladies at UX Amsterdam meetups, and they were really an example for me to start this chapter as well.
Yeah, I can jump in here as well. To me, it's super important. Like, I think it's a fact, right, that there is not a lot of diversity in leadership, especially in design. I think that in time we'll get there. Like, I am positive about it. I think we're heading in the right direction. There's still a lot of work to be done, but it is really important to me. I'm a gay woman, so whenever I see anybody who's gay or identifies as queer, part of me, like, inside kind of celebrates, like, yes, we made it. And so it makes a huge difference. And whether it's subconscious or with me, it's quite conscious when I see that. It does make you think, okay, this is achievable. I can do this. If somebody who is similar to me has gone through this and gotten to this level, I think that's really inspiring, and we definitely need more of that. As I sort of get more experience in my career, I think it's going to be, my responsibility to make sure that there is space for women and diverse people to move into those positions as well. So, when I am looking at roles now, whenever I'm not ready to move in my job, but I really like my job. But if I was looking, it will be important to look at leadership and to see what diversity there is existing in in these management teams. I think that that's also a privilege, right, for me to say that this is the kind of job that I want, and I would expect to see myself reflected in leadership on some level. I think there's been times in my career where you just need work, you just need to pay the bills, and you're not always going to be able to be choosy with the places that you work. I understand that. But yeah, hopefully in time, this is not a thing. Hopefully it's just the norm, the standard, and yeah, that's what I hope for anyway.
Does anyone want to add anything?
Well, for me, in my perspective of leadership, I also just want to share a personal experience. Um, it was a particular project actually with Microsoft before. It's for the blind. So they needed a course on information and basically in computer science. So it was my privilege to be able to develop that course, given that I'm a woman and I'm a blind person, but they entrusted that course to me. So I think that made an impact, well, at least in my community. The fact that even if I'm blind, I have the ability to lead a project like this one. And well, to my surprise, I think this course that I developed is now being used by a lot of blind students here in my country, and even in other Asian countries as well. So I think in that perspective, it's very important. They could easily just ask a male person or a person who doesn't have a disability to create that course, but it's empowering that they gave me the chance to, in spite of me being blind and being a woman, they trusted me to do that course.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah,
yeah, that's really nice. I think
that
that's
is
really nice.
amazing.
And we maybe should not be that afraid to also show that, like show the accomplishment we have, because yeah, maybe we can just inspire someone that is like us. I think that's maybe one thing that I'll try to do. Maybe not be so shy, or try to do it with close circles, or in the way that your personality, like you feel comfortable about.
Yes, actually, also in one of the talks that we had yesterday, one of the girls, I like what she said. I had already read on some articles saying that for women, for us it's very hard to like to apply to new jobs. That we need to check, we need to be sure that, for example, at least 90% of the requirements we need to fill. And instead, for men, if for them it's like 60%. If I can do this and this, okay, yes, I will apply. But for women, it's harder. That actually we feel that we need to fulfill all the requirements, that we need to be more. And yes, instead we should embrace, like we should celebrate our achievements, as Rhea said, which is very nice, amazing. So how can we increase inclusiveness in design and in technology during the pandemic? Talking about more about this period of time that we're living right now due to the pandemic. Everyone is at home or should be at home. I know that there are people that they don't have this privilege of being home. They need to be outside and exposed and working. But since we work with design and technology, like how can we increase inclusiveness in what we do?
I think that this time is really interesting. It is not something nice, but it also brings opportunity. So I think that we can't. I think that the place to start is having conversations with our team. That's maybe the first place to start. I was reading about different types of diversity, and just by googling about that, and maybe just to revise our personas or potential customers and see if we are missing first some groups, and then think about what are the problems they are facing now due to COVID. I think not only people are changing their habits and behaviors, but also the economy will change, the markets will change. So I'm working at a startup at the moment, and I just also realized that we have certain assumptions about the future, but those assumptions probably are wrong for the next year or the couple of years. So I think it's a good opportunity to look at from that perspective, and maybe make new assumptions about what problems will people face. Some companies will not longer exist. Some people will be without jobs. New jobs are emerging. So I think that's a good place to start, just projecting what will happen, and how will that impact our products, and how can we deliver value from it. So yeah, I think from my perspective, this inspires me also to think about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really is a great opportunity for us to really start thinking about this. I think there's been some awesome improvements in the way of accessibility during this time, and we've seen it happen really quickly, right? So products have been developed in record time. Things that took so long, I think, for people with physical disabilities to ask for, almost appeared overnight. Things like not having to be present to to sign for a delivery package, right? So somebody can just leave it at your door, things like that. You know, physical spaces and public design as well, like outdoor eating, being able to order a coffee without actually having to walk into a store which may not have a ramp, things like this. I think it is on one hand opening up things in a way that's that's been really kind of progressive in that sense. And it's a great opportunity for us to start kind of designing products for this. I've seen an app where people will go and I'm guessing they were young university guys, would go and pick up groceries for older people. So there's some really nice things like this happening at the moment. There's also challenges, of course, and I think Paulina, you mentioned once when we talked before about what do you do with education and for kids that don't have laptops and technology at home? What is going on there? You know, it's there's a lot of problems for us to start kind of thinking about these things and innovating and really demanding more from people as well, demanding more from the products. So I think it's a crazy time. This is been incredible in so many ways to see so many different things kind of speeding along. But there's going to be things that we do need to think about on how certain segments of society are affected negatively as well.
Yeah, just to add to that, I was reminded of a project that I was working on recently where they were trying to save Indigenous languages in Australia. And so having to design for something like that was really fascinating. So thinking about offline use and bandwidth and being very mindful of how much is getting downloaded and uploaded, and at what points that can happen so that the language is captured. So the group would go to these Indigenous communities to find elders to be able to document the language in as authentic a way as possible. So this discussion just kind of brought me back to things like that to keep in mind as reminders of like, what would it be like to use this in an offline capacity? What about the bandwidth, and can we afford to be building this for devices that are much older as well? Not everyone has monthly plans for their phones or new phones and things like that. So really being mindful of that has really been a huge reminder for me.
That project sounds amazing. That's really cool that you've been able to work with that.
Very humbling
experience.
Yeah, I think, we see innovations like this one during this pandemic because, well, it's very obvious this pandemic became an eye-opener for a lot of people. I can say that, all of us actually, we all have this deeper sense of empathy in us already. So I think it reflects in the projects that we do. We become more sensitive because I don't know if you guys realize, but this whole staying at home thing or this COVID thing, it sort of made the whole world experience how it is to live with limitations, with boundaries. And for a person with disability like me, even before the pandemic, that's my life. My life is, it's all about limitations, it's all about boundaries, and it's all about pushing those limitations and boundaries. So now I think it became an advantage or a blessing in disguise that the whole world was placed into this, kind of situation. That's why I think it reflects. It reflects in what we do. We became more emphatic. We became more sensitive to what other people needs, and yeah, it's not just about what would satisfy our needs, but we become more empathic.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more because now we exclude more or less like ourselves as individuals, and we need to think about society as a entire system that we are part of. Like before it was like maybe this thing can be with the person next to me but won't happen to me, but now we're in the same environment also. Is amazing in a maybe in a bad way, let's say, that we're living the same thing at the same time, all of us around the world. Like, not that this is the super great thing to happen, but you know, I've never experienced something like this before, like that people across the world, they are living the same thing as I'm living now. Like everyone is at home, we have a lot of limitation. Also, we need to take care of the people that with the people that we're in contact with. Like if you go to meet someone, but maybe this person, I have no idea if this person like hosts a dinner with other 10 people at home, and maybe one of them was uh, contaminated. So yeah, we need to think more about others, not only by like thinking about ourselves. Um, Another question, how can we bring change and action to our environments, not saying only companies, but also for you guys that also host Ladies That UX. How can we bring action and diversity and having different perspective and also respect diversity? How can we be like also an example, let's say?
Oh, I will start. Well, I think it's good to set an example. So we, as our Ladies at UX community, we always say at our meetups we are open to everybody. It's on the website, it's on our meetup pages, so everybody feels welcome. We also say it, we are a welcoming and transparent community. So I hope that everybody feels welcome as well. And we are open also to tips if people do not have not felt welcome, or if there's anything we can improve. I would like to hear it. But also ourselves. I'm also an example of diversity, and I think it's good to take the stage, to show others, and what we've already talked about, be a role model, because I see people around me that maybe don't believe that they can do more and that they can be more. I think, yeah, I'm just a simple girl, and yeah, I think everybody should believe in themselves, that they can reach their full potential.
And one of the things I really like about one of our meetups, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, um, people were talking about their experiences, and we were all at home, and it was new, and it was strange, and it was a bit scary, and we're coping with it. And I think also just by providing the space for that, and then people providing the space to connect, providing the space to express, that's also something that at the moment was very helpful. And I also remember that from that particular meetup, some people connected with each other because they were looking for, I don't know, a designer that was a bit available or interested in X topic. So I think just by also just providing that, it's already helpful. People not always have the network for that. So I think that's something that I like about being, an organizer of the meetup, because you see how people connect, and that's really nice to see as well.
Yeah, I can jump in here in regards to Louise's question. I think this is tough. Like, this is a tough one, bringing the subject of diversity and plurality to people and companies who are not very open to have this discussion. There's a question. I think it can be really hard to be in that position. I think a big red flag for me is when people are saying we don't have a diversity problem, or we don't have a racism problem, or we don't have sexism in our company. Like, these are huge red flags to me. I guarantee you, if somebody is saying that to you, there is a problem there. Because I think people acknowledge that there is always going to be work to do, right? This isn't something that we say, oh, we solved diversity, we're done, we're finished. In 5 years' time, there's going to be more things that we're aware of that we have to work towards. And in 10 years, and this is going to be ongoing forever. So I empathize with you if this is a situation that you're in now, or if anybody who's listening to this is in this situation. It can be very difficult. I think from my perspective, similar to the point I brought up before, it's got to come from two places, right? It's got to come from the top down, from your management team, and from the bottom up as well. And I think starting by having an accurate view on what diversity looks like within your organization is a really great place to start. Like actually talking to people who are diverse in your organization can give you a really accurate representation of what's happening there day to day, actually happening on the ground, rather than just what's produced in this, kind of PR, I guess. With that, I think you have to be really careful not to place the onus on diverse people within your teams to do this work. I think I've seen that a lot too, where it's like, oh, women of color, now you have to go and do this thing. And it's like, okay, well, that's extra work for this group of people to do. That's unfair as well. That shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be up to them to kind of solve the problem for the wider organization. So whether that's like getting in somebody external to kind of have a really unbiased view of what the lay of the land is, I think can really help. But also too, there's small things I think that you can do every day to make sure that from the ground that people are really respected, and challenging things when they come up day to day in meetings. Asking your engineers, hey, how does a screen reader read this screen, for example? These kind of small things take minutes, maybe 30 minutes out of somebody's day to kind of go through a product and to check it. To ask your copywriters to ensure that the language is inclusive as well, is a nice way to do it. Also something that's really easy to do. The imagery that you choose, all these kinds of things, I think can be one way to really have these discussions within your organization, if you don't see that there's much kind of, initiative from management. And also that you have to design for everybody, because you can guarantee that minorities and diverse people are using their products, regardless of what people will say.
Yeah, I totally agree. Does anyone want to add anything? Because I think bringing this theme, maybe this topic is a little bit, I don't know how to say, like maybe people are not so open to talk about diversity, or saying that people are different. Maybe it's a taboo. Like I feel this kind of taboo here in Italy. So I'm like, for me, it's also a challenge to bring to the spaces that I'm in to talk about inclusion, diversity, because usually I'm the person in the room to tackle the problem, like, you're being this, you're being that, like, don't say things like that. I like trying to educate people, for them to understand some differences. It's I think it's a challenge.
I think that's really difficult and unfair. I think some days you do have the energy for it. Some days you're probably just like, God, just Google it, find out for yourself. Why am I the one that has to teach people this? So yeah, I think that's the thing. It is up to the majority to carry a lot of these conversations, and it's a fight for it as well. So having a strong ally network is really important, super important as well.
Yeah, and I guess just to echo what was mentioned a while ago, I think above all else, it's very important for us to start in ourselves. So, we should we should practice what we preach. We should walk the talk. when we say, we're diverse or we are inclusive, we should make sure that in whatever position we are in right now, in our companies, in our jobs, or even in our daily lives, let's make sure that we advocates, we should be the ones to start promoting this advocacies so that more and more people would understand us. Because like for me, for example, the best way that I can make people understand me, the me as a blind person, is to, rather than to always feel like, oh, I'm being discriminated, or I always feel bad whenever something bad happens. um, I usually take the initiative to educate, or have the patience to educate the people around me, or to help them understand, because honestly there are a lot of good people out there who really wants to be inclusive. They do not intend to be exclusive. Sometimes it's just they just lack awareness. So yeah, it's starting in ourselves.
Yeah, just to
Nicely
add to
said,
that,
Rhea.
I have a bit of a story where I recently was working with a coworker who has ADHD and Asperger's. So when he first met me, he had the self-awareness to give me a quick rundown of how he normally operates. So something that he does is he's a very blunt person who calls things out as they are. And so that can sometimes come out as, for example, like, you're wrong, which can be in some cultures very rude. Um, and so I really loved that he took the time to explain that to me, so that when that situation came up, I could completely understand the context in which his behavior came from. And it's just kind of awesome to see that he had the self-awareness and made me want to be more self-aware, and in sharing some of my weaknesses, and some of the ways that I work as well, just so that it mitigates and de-risks a lot of misunderstandings that I find that really come from just working together, right? Like, at the end of the day, we're all people, and we're just all wanting to have a good working relationship with each other, working towards the same goals. And so I really loved this notion of like being really upfront with how you work or how you like to operate or speak. And I was doing a bit of research on this and found Julie Zhao, the ex-VP of product at Facebook. She wrote this really brilliant article about writing a user guide to working with you. And in it, she has some really raw details of some things that she's been told that she needs to improve on, and just being upfront about them, but also things that you should just look out for. So one of the things she mentioned was sometimes it's hard for her to give praise, but it doesn't mean that your work isn't good. And so I just thought this little tidbit is actually really easy for us to change, and really easy for us to put in place from the get-go, if we just be more upfront about how we want to work. And if we start saying that, then other people might follow, and then we can start becoming more closely bonded, I guess.
That's a really nice. That's a really nice idea. I think whether you have a disability or not, I think it's great to just be open from the beginning, and it will already, increase the chances that your relationship is better from the beginning. I think that's nice.
I think it's a good point
Yes.
about diversity in terms of neurotypical and people who may have Asperger's or be on the autism spectrum. Like, I think that's really important. I think within tech as well, it's there's a lot of people who identify as that, so it is something that I think it's really nice that we can learn from each other, right? And that example is like perfect of that. Like, just kind of having no filter and saying, hey, this is who I am, this is how I operate. These are things to not, get offended by. I think that's amazing. I think like we all should start our day like that. Perfect.
Yes, I agree. We should do Like I also should apply this to my communication. So, guys from YouTube, if you have any questions, now is the right moment because we're about to close. So the last question for closer, and also if they have also questions, we can answer afterwards. But my question is, so about changes, what are the 3 things that we could start doing now to increase diversity, to include personas as people with disabilities? What should we do right now for changing and put action in what we do?
I can jump in. So I think one is revisit our personas and analyze it from the point of view of which groups we are missing. There are different articles on Google of what are the types of diversity. So I would do that, and map the potential groups with our teams, together with our teams, because they can have other ideas. So that's number one. Second, we are regularly people. Our role is to facilitate. So I think number two maybe could be facilitate these conversations with our teams and help map these potential customers or diverse people. And I think we should also look at how the market, how it will look, all the predictions about the crisis, the rapid changes, so we can map scenarios about this, plan and iterate, experiment, monitor. And we already do this in our practice, but also taking diversity into account. So, and finally, I listened to a podcast. It's the podcast 188 from UI Breakfast. And this guy is an interview with a guy that wrote a book of what do we do now. It's for product managers in time of COVID-19. And it's a really nice interview. I think maybe to have more context about this could be an easy, quick step just to get more informed. And yeah, those are my 3 things.
Amazing. I love podcasts. Thanks for the recommendation. I already looked for it on Spotify.
I can jump in here with my 3 things. I'm going to keep it really simple. First thing is keep your language simple. That's one thing that I think we can all do, is just to make sure that the language that you're using within your products is really accessible. Keep it clean, keep it clear, keep it really easy for anybody to understand, because you'll often have people where English is a second language. You have different levels of education and reading ability as well. So I'm a big fan of nice, clear, simple copy. And another one would be to make sure you're testing your products with screen readers. Make sure you're testing them and see that they make sense. This is a big one. I think the first time that I saw a product, somebody using a screen reader on an app, like, blew my mind. In that moment, I was just like, this is not an edge case. This is our responsibility. Like, this is something that we actively need to work on. And so there's so many small things that you can do to improve the way that things are read out. You know, whether it's numbers, think about how numbers are pronounced and amounts are pronounced, like you're actually, dollar amounts and things like that. There's a lot of bugs that you can really iron out from just having to look through it. Also, your hierarchy as well, your hierarchy of the way that things are read out. Are people able to complete a task in a short amount of time? Is there a way that you can optimize this and really improve it for people that can't rely on the visuals of your product. Another one is to take the implicit association test. So there's this, if you Google Harvard bias test, you'll find the entries online, and it's essentially there's a bunch of these tests that you can do, and they give you these binary options, right? And you have to make a choice really quick. And there's a bunch of different tests that you can take to test what bias you may or may not have. Anyway, it's fascinating. It's really interesting to have a look at. You'd be surprised at the things that come out. So I would encourage you to do those, or to share it around your networks with your colleagues as well, because yeah, I think it's super interesting to know what your biases are, and you can only kind of work on it once you understand that. That's my 3 things. Thanks.
Will you share the links, Tara and Paulina?
Okay, I think I'll go next. Okay, for my 3 things, it's actually 3 general things I think applicable for everyone, regardless to which field we are in. So this 3 things that I'm gonna share, I think would help in terms of inclusion, diversity. Okay, so number 1, I think it's very important to expand our network, meaning try to get to know a lot of people in different backgrounds, in different fields, in different areas, because this is the very first way to learn about our differences, like what's happening with us right now, different races, different abilities. So just keep on expanding your network, and this leads to number 2, which is to have an open mind. Whenever you meet someone new, and let's say you have differences of values, beliefs, or anything that is different between you and that person, have an open mind to learn from that person. And number 3, just be generous to share your knowledge, share your talents, and share your skills. So for me, as someone who is blind, I think for the tech community or for the design community, if you are interested to explore the tool that we are using, well, most people, I assume, are using smartphones right now. So if you have an iOS device, it's built into the phone, so you can turn on in the accessibility settings, just activate voiceover. And when you're using an Android device, you can go to accessibility settings as well and turn on talkback or voice assistant. And we have this free and open source screen reader that we use in our computer called NVDA, or for Mac users, it's also called VoiceOver. So I'm just sharing this information. So if you want to, discover, or this could help you in your testing processes, you can start in these tools. And yeah, since everything is online right now, you can also start checking the web content accessibility guidelines and the universal design principles. So these are very, very good starting points to practice inclusive design. Yeah.
I love all of these. I've been copiously taking notes, and I don't think there's much else I can really add, other than just really echoing what everyone has been saying about, like being open-minded. Ask your teammates how they like or how they prefer to receive feedback, how they like to be worked with. And then in the same vein, sharing how you like to operate and how you like to work. I feel like that, yeah, I don't quite have 3 after hearing about all these amazing ones. But yeah, I think that, yeah, they're definitely kind of the top ones for me.
Well, then I'm last, I think. Well, I really agree with all these things already that have been said. But I could add to that, is what I also already said, is be a role model. So if you want your environment to be more open, speak up and show people what you're capable of and be a role model to others. And also, Paulina had a good idea to make this talk about diversity more in our communities. So I guess we can do that in our Ladies at Risk community. Organize these meetups or visit them. And also, I heard Tara talking about personas. And I think you can also use these when you have, and also Paulina, when you have defined new personas, use them in your user stories immediately. Because normally the personas are on the wall and it's really hard to get them across to the teams. But if you define your user stories as Ben, I would like this and that functionality, it's you can integrate it in your development as well. And that's something I learned not so long ago, but I think it's really a good takeaway that everybody should do that.
Amazing.
I love that. Get your personas off the wall.
Because now in COVID, we don't even have walls, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I also like these last, like based on the answers that you gave, it reminded me of a book that I'm still reading very slowly. It's called the Culture Map by Erin Meyer, and it's amazing to see how people communicate, people from different cultures, and she explained along the book her experience with different teams and different cultures, how to also to be inclusive. So I think it's very nice. That's my recommendation. But I think that's it. I haven't seen any more questions from on YouTube. I really would like to thank you for all of you that participated on this panel. I think each one of you, you have different perspectives, and I think that's amazing. That's beautiful, and I really would like to to celebrate in this week. We still have 3 more days of event at LTUX to celebrate our diversity, our differences, highlight them. And thank you very much for your time, for accepting the invitation to come here and to speak, to also show how vulnerable you are some way. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Really great.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Yes, Mariana,
Thank you so much.
Love this.
It was
And
nice
also-
meeting all of you. I felt like I gained new friends because of this. Yeah, so thank you. Thank you so much for having
Love
us.
that.
Thanks, Rhea.
Likewise, learnt a lot.
Yes, same. Was
Yes,
great
I really
meeting you
hope
all.
we can meet maybe next year.
Yeah, you're invited.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
Here
in
to
the
check.
next TalkWex or in other occasions. I hope we can really meet in person next time. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.